I never thought I would talk about my heartbreak publicly. For years, I processed everything alone. Every confusion, every rejection, every almost. Every time I felt chosen and then not chosen. I used to record voice memos in the middle of the night or journal whatever I was feeling in that exact moment. Sadness, anger, anxiety, even those short bursts of hope and joy. Sometimes I would cry while recording. Sometimes I would sound calm, but inside I was spiraling. But it helped. It helped me calm my heart. It helped me hear myself think. It helped me realize that I wasn't crazy. I was just hurting. And now I've decided to turn those private reflections into something public. Not for drama, not to expose anyone, but to talk honestly about heartbreak, situationships, anxious attachment, emotional patterns, and how I slowly started shifting towards something healthier. This is Detachment Diaries. My dating life, if I'm being honest, has been chaotic. Not chaotic in a glamorous way, not chaotic in a main character energy way, chaotic in a confusing, emotionally exhausting way. I have a pattern. I like emotionally unavailable men, men who didn't want long term, men who weren't ready, men who weren't sure. And somehow, I always stayed. It slowly built a belief inside me. Maybe I'm just not the one people choose seriously. Maybe I'm only good for casual. Maybe I'm the in-between girl, the placeholder, the distraction. And when you start believing that story about yourself, you act from it. I dated multiple men at the same time, not because I was heartless, but because I was afraid of being left with nothing. If one guy pulled away, I had another to text. If one stopped replying, I could distract myself with someone new. But the truth, I wasn't detached. I wasn't empowered. I was anxious. I was constantly seeking reassurance, constantly trying to feel chosen. And the cycle kept repeating. I like someone, they string me along, I sense distance, I panic internally, I look for another guy to ease the anxiety. And he also turns out emotionally unavailable. And the pattern continues. At some point, I had to pause. I had to sit with myself and ask, what am I doing? Why does this keep happening? Why do I keep attracting or choosing men who won't choose me back? Why do I feel rejected even before anything is official? That was uncomfortable because it's easier to blame them. It's harder to reflect on yourself. But reflection is where growth starts. That's when my healing journey really began. Not the surface level, I'm over him kind of healing, the deeper kind. The kind where you look into your childhood, your attachment style, your fear of abandonment, your need for validation, the stories you internalized about love. I started digging into anxious attachment, why I confuse intensity with connection, why I stay longer than I should, why silence feels like rejection. And I realized something important. I wasn't broken. I was patterned. And patterns can be changed slowly, painfully, but intentionally. That's why I created this channel, not to relive drama, not to shame anyone, not to expose names or details, but to share stories, lessons, patterns, the humor and hindsight, and the growth that comes after emotional chaos. This will stay anonymous because I don't want this to be about identities. I don't want it to be about who did what. I want it to be about insight. I want it to be about recognizing yourself in the stories, I also want to protect the privacy of the people involved. They were part of my journey, but this space is about what I learned, not who they are. So, what can you expect from Detachment Diaries? Well, you're in for a ride. There will be story episodes where I break down specific situationships, heartbreaks, and emotional roller coasters. There will be ghosting chronicles because apparently I experienced enough of that to write a series. And there will be reflection episodes, patterns I didn't see, red flags I ignored, overlaps I justified. We'll talk about detachment, what it really means, the difference between chemistry and connection, anxious attachment, emotional maturity, boundaries I didn't have, and how I slowly started building them. We'll also talk about breaking cycles, because at some point you get tired. Tired of crying over potential, tired of almost relationships, and tired of feeling like you're too much or not enough. And you decide, something has to change. This channel is not about being perfect. It's about being honest. I'm not coming here as someone who figured everything out. I'm coming here as someone who is still learning, still growing, but more aware, more intentional, more secure than before. If you've ever felt like you're always the one who cares more, if you've ever stayed in something undefined, hoping it would turn into something real, if you've ever asked yourself, why do I keep choosing this? Then maybe this space is for you. This is Detachment Diaries, and this is just the beginning. Because if you think this pattern was just a few short flings, it wasn't. There was one connection that lasted 3 years, 3 years of push and pull, 3 years of almost, 3 years of fighting, breaking, making up, and never really defining anything. A situationship. For this channel, we'll call him Alex, which isn't his real name. And that story, that's where my anxious attachment was fully exposed. That's where the illusion cracked. And that's where things finally started to break. And we're diving into that next.